Bond, James Bond. Hi, this is Robert Darby, and you're listening to Cracking the Code of Spy Movies. Stay tuned.
The debate over who should be the next James Bond and the future of James Bond often stirs up a lot of excitement and opinions. We don't think it matters who the next James Bond is because we think James Bond can't go on indefinitely. And here's why. Hi, this is Dan.
And Tom.
From our podcast, Cracking the Code of Spy Movies, and our website, spymovienavigator.com, the premier go-to resources for spy movie fans. All right, a lot of people think the hiring of the next actor to play James Bond is key to the franchise continuing. However, I argue it doesn't matter who takes on the role for a few reasons, and we'll lay out the reasons right now. Number one, character consistency. James Bond is a well-defined character with specific traits: suave, resourceful, unflappable. These characteristics remain mostly consistent regardless of the actor, ensuring the essence of Bond is preserved. As long as the actor embodies the core traits of James Bond, charm, intelligence, resilience, all that kind of stuff, the essence of the character remains intact. This continuity helps maintain the franchise's identity. So I don't think...
But Dan, I wouldn't say there's been a lot of consistency as the actors have changed for the role. I mean, Connery was fairly serious with the occasional quip. Lazenby was fairly close to Connery in his portrayal when it comes to that perspective. Moore was just very quip heavy and very light. Dalton brought things back more serious, closer to the Fleming novels type of Bond.
Okay.
Brosnan lightened things up again. And then Craig brought things back to the serious. So maybe they got to swing to a little lighter here. I think the consistency has to be within an actor's portrayal of James Bond, not necessarily consistency as the actors have changed. I mean, This is where Daniel Craig's Bond blew it for me. You know, I've said this numerous times on the show.
Yes,
I loved him. I've loved him in Casino Royale. Then he changed the character so much that I didn't recognize James Bond in No Time to Die.
Okay.
If you're going to be consistent within an actor. So his lack of consistency is what I had a problem with. To me, whomever they give this role to has to be consistent in how he or she plays James Bond over the course of their helming that role.
Yeah, well, I think as long as they stick to the core values and the persona of James Bond, they will be okay. All the actors who play James Bond to date, really, save Lazenby because he only did one, they changed the character a bit from beginning to end. All of them, even Connery. I mean, by Diamonds Are Forever, he was different. Dalton made him even better, actually, in his second outing. So I think they're going to be okay if they stick to the core values. All right, here's our second point, and I think it's a good one. The franchise strength. The James Bond franchise has a strong legacy and a dedicated fan base. The brand itself is powerful enough to attract audiences regardless of the actor playing Bond. They've proved that for 62 years. The overall quality of the movies, including the plot, direction, and supporting cast, often plays a more significant role in the success than the specific actor who's playing Bond, which we'll talk about in a minute. EON Productions have selected 6 actors over 62 years, and all have brought something to the table that people have liked. So they do a pretty damn good job of picking the next James Bond. So we shouldn't be worried or concerned.
Okay, but I am.
Tom is.
All right. Because yes, the franchise is strong, but with them killing James Bond at the end of the last movie, did they blow their strength? The invincibility of Bond, right? And I know from a fact, I'm not going to be one of the first people to go see this movie if and when it ever comes out, right?
Okay.
And I'm certainly not going to fly to the UK like I did for No Time to Die to see it because it released there before it came into the US. I'm going to want to know what happens before I go waste my time with this, if it's going to be a waste of time. And to me, it was something that people talked about when we went to David Zaritsky's Gather All in August. There were people talking about this, right?
Yeah.
No Time to Die may have hurt the franchise, and they're going to have to figure out how to put an appropriate Band-Aid on it.
Yeah. Hey, I don't think they can put a Band-Aid on it. They need a gauze wrap or something because, but I don't think it helped the franchise, No Time to Die. But there were plenty of viewers who loved No Time to Die, and plenty more who will forgive the franchise for doing this, I think. And look at all the new James Bond fan groups that have popped up all over the world since No Time to Die. So I don't think we have any worries that the interest is still there, even though, we and many others are not so happy with No Time to Die.
Well, now are these fan groups just longing for the old days?
Hey, it doesn't matter. We'll talk about that too. All right, let's look at the third real good reason why we shouldn't worry. Fresh perspectives. Yeah, look, we've had fresh perspectives all the time. Each new actor brings his own unique interpretation to the role, which can keep the series fresh and engaging. And this variety can appeal to different generations and tastes, and it has. The next Bond, depending on the direction EON Productions decides to go, may have a huge impact on either reinventing the franchise, rebooting the franchise, or taking us back to places we have never been, or at least have not been for a long time. Each actor brings their own unique style and interpretation to the role, which can keep the series fresh and exciting, and it has for 62 years. This variety can attract new fans while keeping longtime followers engaged. It's done that already.
And Dan, I agree with you on this one.
All right.
I mean, because if you go way back in our show here, in our show history, our first interview that we did was with author David Holcomb.
Oh, that was
and
fun.
He had written a book, His World Never Dies, The Evolution of James Bond in Movies.
Great book. Great book.
And in that book, he talked about how every so often the franchise gets too out there or fantastical, and they have to reel things back in and become more solid. Let's get back to the base.
Yeah.
And oftentimes this accompanies a new actor, and it is a perfect time for new perspectives. And we're at that point because they got to do something new because Bond is dead.
This just in. Bond is dead. All right. Here's a fourth reason, the supporting elements. The success of a Bond film really often relies on more than just the lead actor. We kind of said this already. Critical elements like the storyline, direction, gadgets, villains, they all play crucial roles in making the movies memorable. We've seen some poor storylines in the Brosnan era, and yet the movies were successful despite all that. So all of the elements mixed into a primordial stew count in bringing success to the franchise, not just the actor. So all of it counts, and they've done a great job of that over all these years. Why not again?
Although Dan, I'm going to agree with you again, but on the poor storylines, can we please get rid of Purvis and Wade?
Oh my God, not the Purvis and Wade again.
Sorry, I know I'm kicking a dead can down the dead whatever it is, dead cat down.
A dead horse.
Whatever I'm doing it. Right? No.
A dead can. Okay. All right.
Right. Now, so that's the storytelling. Now, one supporting element that you didn't mention about Bond is the team around him, right? Be it Felix Leiter, M, Moneypenny, Q, Tanner, whatever, right?
Yeah.
These supporting elemental characters change over time, which makes sense for an organization like MI6. But one thing they've done in the franchise is, as they've changed the actor, they haven't necessarily changed who the actor was in these supporting roles. They've changed them, but not always at a James Bond actor change. And so I think consistency is going to be important for this in terms of these supporting elements.
Yeah.
And I think the core team is critical. And Purvis and Wade just seemed hell-bent on killing most of them off.
Yeah, killing off most of the characters that we respected or loved as protagonists or antagonists was a crazy idea. I have to say, I don't know what the hell they were thinking there.
Yeah, because they weren't thinking about consistency. And to me, with this consistency, the supporting team has to remain somewhat intact going forward. Now, if you want to bring in new characters like Nomi or Paloma, great. They're part of the team. That's great. However, I also think they need to bring back at least Ben Whishaw as Q and Ray Fiennes as M, or at least one of them, because for that consistency, because if they replace everybody, forget it. And in part because I really like their portrayal of the roles, but again, for consistency. Now, with regard to Moneypenny, I never bonded with Naomi Harris's Moneypenny role. I mean, she acted the role fine. I have no problem with her performance.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
I just didn't like the way her character was written. So, if you're going to bring forward Naomi Harris, give her more.
Right? Yeah. All right. I agree. I'd like to see Ben back as well. But recently he said it's very unlikely he will be asked to reprise his role as Q. So
That's too bad.
yeah, I mean, this is just like last week or the week before. I thought he was great too, and I love Fiennes as M. He was, I think, one of the best M's. He was terrific. I didn't mind Naomi Harris as Moneypenny, though they really invented a backstory for her that we really weren't anticipating. But
Because that wasn't really Moneypenny, the one we know
it's
and
like,
love.
what the hell? All right, here's our fifth element, the cultural impact. And all of these things help solidify Bond and help us say, hey, it really doesn't matter who the heck they pick. James Bond's become a cultural icon, transcending the individual actors who have portrayed him. Everyone knows who James Bond is. If you're a James Bond fan, you followed the franchise, maybe getting hooked on whoever the actor playing Bond was when you first started watching Bond movies. We talked to a lot of people like that, right? Whoever they love, Pierce Brosnan, if you grew up in the Pierce Brosnan era, whatever, that's fine.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Your James Bond tends to be
Yeah,
the first one you saw.
yeah. But Bond is an icon, and the character's influence on popular culture, man, it's significant. And popular culture's influence on the Bond franchise also has been significant. And this legacy continues with each new portrayal. So, really, what does it matter who the next James Bond is? Ian Fleming himself did not initially like Sean Connery as a selection for Bond. Everybody knows that now. He was so wrong and admitted it and wrote Bond's heritage as part Scottish as an homage to Connery. Then Lazenby comes along. Over the years, many Bond fans look on Her Majesty's Secret Service now as one of the best Bond movies ever. Yet
Hey,
initially,
Dan, that one didn't have Purvis and Wade involved.
yeah. Yeah. Initially, it was criticized, though. People like they were bad mouthing the movie. I was like, who's this guy? He can't even act. Roger Moore, all right, too comedic, too light, too funny, too many things he changed. Yet he did 7 successful James Bond movies, and Bond fans appreciate his work. Timothy Dalton, who is he? Too serious, too dark, too unfunny. Yet The Living Daylights and License to Kill are now looked at as pretty darn good Bond movies. Pierce Brosnan, Remington Steele prepped his image as a natural James Bond, and besides GoldenEye, his Bond movies were criticized as weak entries. Most were very successful financially, and in reality, it was the weak plots and storylines, like we said, not Brosnan, that generated most of the criticism. And then we come to your favorite, Tom, Daniel Craig. Wow. What? A shorter, blue-eyed, blondish type Bond? No way. Now many think he's one of the best Bonds ever. So
don't count me in on the many there.
Tom does not.
Now, Dan, I will say, unless EON Productions does something really stupid, I mean,
they're capable.
Yeah, fill in your blanks as to what that might be. Things are likely to be good. And so that's why we're saying here that it really doesn't matter who the next James Bond actor will be. It will be good if EON Productions doesn't screw up the formula too much.
There you go. We're going to talk about EON Productions in a bit too, but let's give a few shout outs too. We'd love to give a shout out to a few listeners who have provided feedback on recent episodes of Cracking the Code of Spy Movies. All right. So big shout out to Jim Phelps, who gave us feedback on our last 2 episodes, Spy Movie News and Is James Bond a Psychopath? And to Simon Woolley, this is his first time he gave us some feedback, who loved our Is James Bond a Psychopath episode. Thanks, guys. Keep the feedback coming.
He actually bought the book, right? So, you gotta like that.
Yeah, he bought the book that Stephen McWilliams wrote. He was our guest and psychiatrist who analyzed Bond's mind. All right, so it doesn't matter who the next James Bond is. So now we will look at why James Bond can go on indefinitely.
Dan, he died.
His eternal life, we're going to talk about. The James Bond franchise has a timeless appeal that suggests it could continue indefinitely. Here are a few reasons why, and some of these reasons dovetail nicely with why we should not worry about who the next James Bond will be.
Okay, so number 1, Dan, is let's start off with the fact that James Bond is an iconic character.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a cultural icon with a well-defined persona. I mean, this resonates across generations. We're not spring chickens, you and me, and yet we have some younger fans that we've talked to, and
absolutely,
this guy spans it all.
62
and we've got
years,
62 years of seeing him up there. And now, considering that a generation is somewhere between what, 15 and 20 years, something like that.
Yeah.
We've had over 3 generations come on board that were Bond fans. I mean, this is not bad.
That's almost impossible to achieve.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
fantastic.
Absolutely. And his blend of sophistication, bravery, and charm makes him a universally appealing character. I mean, now don't forget, Bond has an enormous international following, which is very rare for a franchise. For him to be able to take this and make it really a worldwide phenomenon, if you will.
Absolutely. Mission Impossible really is the only one that competes internationally as a spy movie franchise with Bond. And Bond's got 25 movies already, and maybe 26 sometime. All right.
Oh, you're an optimist.
All right. Here's another reason why he can go on indefinitely. Adaptability. The franchise has shown an impressive ability to adapt to changing times and tastes. Whether it's updating the technology, addressing contemporary issues, or evolving the character's traits, Bond movies stay relevant to the times, to the technology, to the people, and issues of the world. They've done it for 62 years. That's a pretty good resume.
Yeah, now the part of this adaptability I want to kind of highlight here is the technology. All right. Because they do try to pull in leading edge stuff into the movies. Again, show that it's keeping current. And now I'm going to say something that may surprise you here, Dan.
Okay.
Even the miserable, invisible car in the equally miserable Die Another Day had a bleeding edge to it. They're trying to stay relevant. And sometimes you get a big hit, and sometimes the product never sees a commercial light of day. I mean, think of the rocket pack in Thunderball, right?
Yeah.
That was very leading edge technology, never hit the commercial market, but everybody wanted one. Right. So if I look at things like when I went out and saw the Richard Maybaum collection at the University of Iowa here in the US, he had a folder in the collection that were just clippings of different technologies that were up and coming that he found interesting. Now, for instance, he was. And for instance, there was an article about how blimps were starting to make a comeback. That article that he had in his folder was written a couple of years before he penned A View to a Kill.
Hey, see, there you go.
It's they're constantly looking for this technology changes and trying to stay on top of it. So adapting to times is a key success factor for the Bond franchise. However, sometimes I think they overdo it. For instance, the smoking and promiscuity were 2 of James Bond, the Ian Fleming Bond features or traits. Yeah. And those are mostly gone from the recent movies as they're trying to adapt. But I think you're taking away part of who Bond was.
This is the thing we talked about before. You have to keep the Bond persona. If you get too far away from that, you're in trouble. And can there be trouble? Yeah, there can be. I don't think they're going to do that. All right, let's look at another point of why Bond can go on indefinitely. Strong storytelling. I know you didn't like some of the Purvis and Wade stuff, Tom, and I know you might mention that again. However, the franchise consistently delivers engaging and thrilling stories. The combination of espionage, action, and intrigue keeps audiences coming back for more. Yeah, some stories were better than others, but for the most part, all of the James Bond movies made money. And if you are in the movie business, making money is kind of important. It's an absolute must. And James Bond has done that consistently for 25 movies. Pretty darn good.
So your strong storytelling really is strong cash register.
It translates to a strong cash register. Sure. That's the whole goal, right? You're not putting a movie out for the art of it. Nobody's doing that anymore.
Hard to do.
Not the major studios.
Yeah. Well, you look at Coppola just did his Megalopolis. That was his, he wanted to do it movie.
All right. Let's look at the 4th point, Tom. Go ahead.
All right. So let's talk about high production values then.
Yeah.
Right? Because you talk about strong storytelling. I actually think this high production values is more important.
Yeah.
Because the Bond films are known for their high quality production, including exotic locations, cutting edge gadgets, and spectacular action sequences.
Yeah.
This commitment to quality ensures a captivating cinematic experience.
Yeah.
I mean, Harry Saltzman, who co-produced the first 11 James Bond movies with Albert Cubby Broccoli, he once booked circus acts across Europe, and you've talked about this one.
It's just weird,
Dan, right? I mean,
yes, we did.
We
talked with Steven Saltzman, Harry's son, about this.
Yeah, exactly. So in the circus, when they cut the elephants out of the act because they were too expensive to ship and feed, the circus interest died down. The revenue went down.
Yep.
So when at EON Productions, Harry was all for putting it on the screens. As he said, give them their elephants.
That's what he said.
And they've done this consistently for all these generations. Again, it's a nice resume bullet. Now, I've read stories about him ordering shoes for elephants in one of the movies.
Yes, he did.
Right,
I think
so
40 pair or something.
there was a lot of them that he ordered, but
Yeah.
he was trying to really give him the elephant. But the whole concept of high production values, put it all on the screen, is something EON Productions has done extremely well and better than almost any. You look at MCU, it's not even close to the same.
There you go. All right, let's look at a fifth reason why the Bond franchise can continue indefinitely: a dedicated fan base. The franchise has a loyal and expansive fan base that spans the globe. This dedicated following ensures a steady demand for new Bond adventures. As we mentioned, a huge international fan base is rare, and James Bond has it. This makes box office numbers soar and money is made, and that is key. They will do it again, and they can continue to keep doing this because now the fans are watching all the old movies now too, because hey, they got nothing else to do. There's no Bond 26 out yet. We're all watching all the old Bond movies now, all 25 of them, and the fan base is dedicated. There you go.
Yeah, really. And if they don't watch it, we might be able to see one a year before they get the next one. All right. Now, so another thing I want to talk about is the cultural impact here.
Point 6.
Yeah. Point number 6. James Bond has left an indelible mark on popular culture.
Yes, no doubt.
You look at virtually anything in life, and James Bond has had a hand in it. I mean, the character and the films have influenced fashion, music, and very often many other movies in a big way, which has cemented Bond's place in entertainment history. I mean, 60 plus years of success really says a lot. I mean, I remember growing up, and I don't know that I had even seen a Bond movie. And you wanted to be a spy as a kid because you wanted to be like James Bond, even though, like I say, I don't think I had seen one when I was really young and thinking that way.
Yeah, it had a ripple effect on many, many parts of life. All right, let's look at the 7th reason why we think the Bond franchise could go on indefinitely. Versatile casting. The ability to cast different actors in the role of Bond allows the franchise to refresh itself periodically. I think you're going to see Mission Impossible have a tough time when Tom Cruise is no longer Ethan Hunt.
Or Ethan Hunt's not the main character.
Yeah. I mean, here, each new actor brings their unique take on the character of James Bond, keeping the series dynamic and interesting. And they've done it for 62 years, so that's pretty darn good. We mentioned this earlier, and it's true. It really does not matter who the next James Bond is. EON has another great resume bullet here. They've done it well for 62 years.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's just Bond, though, Dan. I think the villain is almost more important than who plays Bond.
Yeah, you got to have a good villain.
You take a look at Rami Malek. He's a fantastic actor.
Yes, he is.
I found his Saf and character boring. Thank you, Purvis and Wade. In fact, if you look on...
I did too. And a lot of people did.
Yeah, well, in fact, almost every actor who's in a Bond movie in their known for section on IMDb has the Bond movie. Rami Malek does not.
Really? Oh,
I think that says a lot, right?
Yeah, that says something.
From the villain's perspective, the good ones, Goldfinger, Franz Sanchez, Silva, and even most of the Blofeld actors, and they were strong casting for these now classic roles, and they had versatility here. You look at the different actors who played Blofeld; he was played very, very differently.
Telly Savalas, Donald Pleasance, yeah.
Now versatility is not universal here, Dan. You talk about it really doesn't matter who the next Bond actor is. I slightly disagree with you on this, but I think based on what you've given me for the outline for what we want to talk about, your talking points here, I'm going to hold off on that one and go into it in a little more depth in a few minutes.
Yeah, given these factors, it's easy to see why the James Bond franchise has the potential to continue captivating audiences for many years to come. So, is it possible EON Productions screws things up?
Well, they might have already done it.
Yeah. Many think they already did with No Time to Die. Can they screw it up more? Yeah, sure. They can screw it up more. They can cave to social pressures, the dumbing down Bond, the changing who Bond really is, to just giving up, saying, hey, we've had enough. Bond is dead. But
But you
This
know what?
is
I would
a
have respected them for that. If they had said this was the
yeah.
last Bond movie, hey, hats off to you. That was if you were going to get rid of them that way. That's fine.
Some fans are hoping that is
Yeah.
the case. That this is good. That's a good fitting ending. He's dead. Boom, done. All right, move on. All right, but this is a multi-billion-dollar business.
Billion with a B.
Billion. Yeah. It would be tough not to continue or at least sell the rights off so that some other entity could continue to produce new James Bond movies. I mean, multi-billions is a good thing.
Yes.
Additionally, EON Productions could make more mistakes. Sure, they could.
What are some of those, Dan?
They could have really poor casting choices. All right, casting an actor who doesn't resonate with the audience or fails to capture the essence of James Bond or is part of the social pressure cooker that a Bond must be this or that now. That could alienate a lot of fans. And they've been very vocal about this, fans all over the world. The actor needs to embody Bond's charm, sophistication, and toughness. So,
Okay, now wait a second though. A
Yeah.
few minutes ago, you said it didn't matter who they cast as Bond. Now
Right.
you're kind of saying it is important. And
Yep.
I think a poor casting choice could really hurt. Now, for instance, I think this next guy I'm going to talk about here is a very good actor. I've seen him on stage many times. I've seen him on screen, but I don't think Daniel Radcliffe would make a good James Bond. He's 35 years old, so he's the right age. I just can't see him in this role, nor would I think he'd want to take another franchise role like this.
yeah.
But I think he would be a poor casting choice, even though he's a great actor, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, what we're saying here, can they make a poor casting choice? Yes, they can. But I don't think they will. I don't think EON Productions will make that mistake. They never really have. So why would they now? All right. Here's another way they can make mistakes. Weak storylines. We've seen a few weak storylines. Tom might want to mention Purvis and Wade, but
I probably will.
EON could cheap out or rush. Yeah, that's unlikely. A storyline, right?
Well, but wait a second, though. You got to remember, there's an Amazon influence here. So once they figure things out and where they're going to go forward, Amazon may force this into a meat grinder of cranking things out really quickly.
You don't know. Right. That is an element that was not there for 62 years. That's true. So the strength of Bond films lies in their compelling plots, and a weak or unengaging storyline could lead to a lackluster film that doesn't really meet audience expectations, especially if that is the first James Bond movie after this last hiatus and long wait that we've had already since No Time to Die. So
yeah, now somehow we've survived. Maybe with No Time to Die, we didn't. The whole Purvis and Wade era.
Oh my God, there we go.
Again, let's hope that we get new writers and a strong storyline. I do worry about the franchise if the storylines stay weak. Are fans going to still want to go to them?
That's the point.
I think EON Productions is lucky that Bourne ran its course. Ethan Hunt seems to be at the end of his run, and a strong storyline will help it fend off many of the wannabes that are trying to take over. I mean, you look at Netflix, they're coming out with a lot of these spy movies that they're saying is going to be a franchise. And if it hits, there might be a second version.
Yeah.
All right. So there's a lot of people who are trying to figure out how to crack into this.
Yep.
And if they come out with a weak storyline following No Time to Die, they could be in trouble.
And Amazon's ownership of MGM now can change the landscape a little bit, right? All right, here's another reason why EON Productions can screw up. Over-reliance on CGI. Look, while special effects are important, over-reliance on CGI at the expense of practical events and stunts could detract from the realism and excitement that fans expect from James Bond films. Real stunts and real stunt people cost money. Will EON cheap it out and use more CGI stuff, which fans hated in Die Another Day? I don't know.
Well, now
Hopefully not.
I think this is a big concern now that Amazon owns them, because are they going to cheap out here?
It
Right?
could.
Will there be cost constraints there? But I think we also have to remember that the CGI in Die Another Day just sucked. It was poorly done.
Even the director, Lee Tamahori, said he wishes he could change it.
Yeah. But CGI today is much cleaner. And I think you can get away with CGI now that they're doing a better job of how they do it. I mean, it's amazing when you see how a movie's filmed nowadays.
Yeah.
With all the dots and all that stuff, and the
Yeah.
stunt, even
Yeah,
things like
we talked to Rick English about
Yeah.
this. He's a stunt performer, and
Yeah.
that was a great talk with Rick. Take a listen to that one. And yeah, he talks about all this kind of stuff.
Yeah,
now.
but there is CGI things like the face swapping that they can
Yeah,
do.
yeah,
Where
right.
you've got the stunt person performing the stunt, but they
can be
put the
used
actor's face
effectively.
on it. Right. So I think over-reliance on bad CGI
Yeah, there you go.
is more important than over-reliance on CGI.
Yeah,
because,
yeah, and then we got AI too. We really don't know how it's going to impact writing, idea creation, and more too. So all these are elements that EON production could screw up.
All right, so Dan, let's move off of the CGI stuff and let's talk about something that we've kind of hinted at already: ignoring core elements. So if they stray too far from the core elements that define Bond, such as his suave demeanor, his iconic gadgets, the thrilling action sequences, the womanizing, I mean, it could disappoint longtime fans, and they've started getting rid of the womanizing.
Yep.
And it can fundamentally change James Bond and who he is. And you might be pushing a very different MI6 agent on fans, and you don't know. It might be one they might not like at all.
Yeah, I mean, this is a key point. And really, you don't have to like James Bond. Ian Fleming himself said, I didn't intend for Bond to be likable. You know, if he's womanizing, if he's a drinker, if he's a smoker, you don't have to like that. You don't have to agree with his philosophy of life. That's his character. There you go. All right. Let's look at a fifth reason why EON Productions could screw things up: inconsistent tone. Yeah, Ian has struggled with a couple of things over the decades. Is this going to be a real spy espionage movie like From Russia with Love? That was a great one. Or an action movie like the Mission Impossible entries that have influenced, definitely, James Bond movies. James Bond movies have bounced between these forever. And will James Bond be more serious or more lighthearted? Maintaining a consistent tone is crucial. Drastic shifts in tone, whether too serious or too lighthearted, could disrupt the franchise's balance and alienate viewers. To us, Sean Connery had the perfect balance of humorous quips and cold-hearted, assassin-like action and demeanor. Do that again.
Well, they based him off the Fleming novels, made it a little easier.
What an idea.
Yeah, so another thing that's kind of similar to this is what I'll call our sixth point, Dan: neglecting character development. If an inconsistent tone will do this, you still have to develop the character to keep things going. So and it's got to be Bond's character as well as the supporting cast. So audience appreciate depth and growth in characters over time. Just don't take everything away when you do it.
Yeah.
We've seen over the decades various versions of Bond, and building that character with adding more emotional depth, humor, toughness, grit, more action. I mean, that kind of thing. Character development is going to be important as they go forward, or they could screw it up if they don't do that.
That's a good point. And here's another point that I think we should look at, and it's our seventh point: poor direction or production quality. If they screw that up, then they're screwed. So subpar direction, cinematography, or production values can significantly impact the overall quality of the movie. High production standards are a hallmark of the Bond franchise. If EON changes their production formula, they no longer give us the elephants, then that could spell trouble. In general, great direction and production value has been their hallmark. You can't change that. So EON, keep it going the way you did.
Yeah, and this is the thing that has me most concerned about the Amazon purchase of MGM, because do they give them less budget to work with?
Yeah, who knows?
And eliminate some of the great production quality and the costs. I mean, you look at the costs of making these movies.
It's enormous.
But part of that is not just, okay, we're getting this team to do this, but it's how they build the family, right?
Yeah.
And that adds to the production quality. I mean, how many people have worked on Bond movies for years?
Yeah.
And that helps the production quality stay up.
All right. In the end, we got one last point for you. Don't ignore the fan feedback.
Do you think they got any after No Time to Die?
Disregarding the feedback and expectations of the dedicated fan base can create dissatisfaction. engaging with fans, and considering their input can help maintain the franchise's appeal. We think EON could do more of this. The fans know what they want, and those considerations must be part of the formula for the future of James Bond. Not completely, but feedback is a good thing. EON Productions has a strong track record, but staying true to the elements that have made James Bond iconic while also innovating and adapting to modern tastes is key to continuing the franchise's success. And what if EON decides the ultimate, influenced by what Sean Connery might have told them if they asked him if they should find another Bond actor for a new movie?
You've had your 6.
All right, EON says, we're not going to make any more James Bond movies. Well, heck, James Bond will live on anyway. Heck, even James Bond said.
Don't worry.
So there. Why? 'Cause we said it all before. He's a cultural icon. There's classic storytelling in all the movies so far. The high rewatch value of all the movies that exist now.
Well, wait. I'm going to stop you.
Yeah.
If I don't see No Time to Die or Die Another Day again in my life, I'll still have lived a good life. So high rewatch value, that's going to be personal because there are other people who love
All right,
it.
don't watch that one, Tom. Everybody's going to watch the other 24 then. All right, there's legacy and nostalgia, the media and the merchandising that they've done. They've made millions and millions of dollars on that. And the streaming and digital access, it's all over the place now, especially now that Amazon bought it. It's on Prime all the time. Sometimes you got to pay, though. But, hey, they want their money back, $8.1 billion or whatever they paid. All right.
So, Dan, even without new releases, what I think you're saying here is that with the existing Bond movie catalog, there's genuine potential for James Bond to remain beloved and the movies to be influential for many years to come.
Yeah, why not? You got a very strong catalog. So there we go. Relax and let's see what the next move from EON Productions is. That's a wrap on why we should not worry about James Bond. This has been Dan.
And Tom.
Of SpyMovieNavigator.com and our podcast show, Cracking the Code of Spy Movies. Subscribe to our show and our YouTube channel as well. Thanks for listening. We appreciate it.